Hey everyone, this is Rocky from WeLearnChess.com, and today's video is on a creative way to look at double attacks. And first, welcome back. If you've seen some previous videos, you know that I've been absent for a while. So my wife and I had our first child recently, and we've had a lot of fun and excitement around the house, but of course a lot less time for chess. But hope to get back on track here and make some videos, so let's start with this one. So the first thing that we should do is clarify the difference between a fork and a double attack, because a lot of people mix them up. So a fork would just be one of your pieces attacking two of your opponent's pieces. So if it was black to move here, you could play knight d2 and attack both this rook and the queen. And of course with a fork, usually at least one of the pieces is of greater value than the attacking piece. So that's a fork. But let's imagine that we had this piece, we had the board a little bit different here. Let's say that white had something like this, or black had this bishop, and let's do something like this. Okay, so let's imagine we had this set up here, and it is black to move again. We can do a double attack here, where if we play the same knight move, okay, now we're not forking anything, we're here on b1, but we are hitting this piece with our queen, and we're also hitting this piece with our bishop. So we've got a double attack here, attacking two pieces with two of our pieces. So that's the difference there, where it's done with two pieces here, and then of course something's gotta give here, because the queen's gotta move, and that means that at least an exchange is going to be won here for black to maybe get some sort of chance back here in the game. Already down an exchange himself. So. Alright, so now that we've got that clarified here, let's take a look at a game that I just played. Played this one on ChessCube, but I just loaded it up here on chess.com because the live analysis is pretty cool. And I played the French, which I never play, and I actually hate the French. I'm a 1e4 player as white, and whenever black plays the French, I feel like they just, have no space. Piece coordination seems like it's often just really wacky. Usually like an unsafe king, but yeah, a lot of times black will just attack my center and attack my queen side, and if I don't create a successful attack on the king side myself, then a lot of times I just start losing pawns and everything falls apart. So I can see why people play the French. I mean, I used to say I couldn't even understand it, but it's kind of like some pretty straightforward ideas as black. Like, you kind of know what you're playing for right from the beginning. So I'm going to try to mess around with it myself more, if for no other reason than just to try to figure out what my opponents are doing, so I can not lose so much as white against it. Okay, so again, I had the black pieces, and you can tell that I don't know the opening because I'm already making mistakes here. This c5 is a mistake. I think I had to play knight f6 here, and I'm not looking at the computer at the moment, but I'm pretty sure that white plays e5, and then play knight here, and then this is exactly the kind of position where, like as white, it just looks so ridiculous for black, but black is going to get the c5 break in pretty easily and start to free up his pieces. So that's probably what should have happened, but instead I played c5 immediately. Okay, white gets this check in, and already we're in a interesting position here. White probably should throw in an intermezzo check with like queen e2. And then, depending on how I block, I guess either bishop block would be okay, but maybe even something like, I'm not sure what the best square would be for the knight after that, if it would have to retreat or what, but, this definitely put a little bit of pressure on my opponent here from the beginning, and he was really interested in holding on to this pawn that he had kind of won here, so he just was so concerned about it that he blundered into an immediate fork here. So you can stop your video and find the fork if you want. A lot of times in the openings you'll see when your queen is open on these diagonals that you're able to throw in a check here. So this basically lost the game immediately. I mean, now obviously if the bishop moves, then the knight's under attack, and if the knight moves, then it's going to have to get taken by the pawn. So that's what happened here. And also, just to make things even worse, he basically had to get rid of this bishop. I mean, I guess he could have tried to move it and lose a tempo, but I'm not really sure what was the lesser of two evils. But here, not only am I up a piece, but I get my pawns back, so this game's basically over. but I want to look at a couple instances later on that are related to the topic of the video with these double attacks. So, okay, so we haven't seen a double attack yet. We've just seen that fork. Let's move forward here and just fast forward through some moves. My opponent wasn't really able to find compensation for the piece here. So, he kicked my queen, but there wasn't really anything going on. Here, I don't really see why he made this move. It's probably a bad move for a couple reasons. One is because I'm leading with my queen in the battery, so it's not like I'm immediately threatening to take that knight anyway. And two, he just weakened all these light squares around his king. And, he had given up his light square bishop earlier, so now this is going to be a problem, and this is how the game ends pretty quickly, actually. So always look for those opportunities too. If your opponent loses a color bishop, then try to see if you can attack those color squares somewhere on the board. It's not always around the king. It could be somewhere else. So immediately I just wanted to go in and try to start attacking the square. So I thought if he played f3, then he's kind of further weakening his king side. So anyway, in the game, he just decided to move his queen, centralize it, connect his rooks. So I guess that also makes sense. And here I just, set up some discoveries against his queen, and he decided to get out of that. So we both kind of lost a little bit of time here, but I felt like I developed. So he's attacking this pawn, and here, I don't know why I didn't find it, but just bishop to f3 immediately, just going for this weakened light squares, and in this case it would also defend this pawn, which is being attacked by the queen. So, then it would have been really hard for him to defend himself, I think. But okay, I had a different idea here. Whoops, sorry. Those red squares didn't mean anything. I moved the queen over, just now it's away from discoveries of the knight, and also if he decides to take this pawn, then I'm going to take his knight, which is sort of a removal of the defender tactic, or not really tactic, but just a removal of the defender, because this knight is defending this sensitive h3 square. He's the only defender of these light squares over here that's left, so I want to get rid of him. And that's what happens in the game. So he takes, and I take, and he takes back. So here, he might think that he's still sort of defending himself a little bit, but again, aside from being down material, he's really in trouble right now. He does have this diagonal covered with the queen, so he probably felt like he was okay. But you can find some creative ways to get into those light squares. So the first thing I did was hit the queen and get my rook off a dark square. I didn't feel like my rook was ever going to be able to penetrate here to d2 because the bishop had it. So I figured just, hitting this queen, attacking this pawn, gaining a tempo, getting the rook off the dark squares, that all made sense. But my opponent's next move kind of showed a weakness of my move, which is he was able to keep an eye on both of these rooks, and I'm never really able to put a rook on b8 because this bishop has it. So maybe it would have been better for me to move the a rook over. I just left it there too because it was defending this pawn, but that's not really relevant in this position. So, but anyway, I moved this one, and he played here, and he also wanted to stay on this diagonal. So this is actually a pretty annoying post for the queen. But okay, I could just try to trade queens. Like I could just drop back and basically end the game that way. But I really wanted to go for the checkmate on the light square, so I wanted to find a way to do that. Black actually has a lot of interesting moves here. A lot of things win. The best move I didn't even see in the game. So if you want to put your video on pause and try to find a couple good moves for black here, go ahead and do that. Okay, well the move that I didn't see in the game is just g5, and he basically can't move this bishop. If he moves this bishop, then I'm going to put my bishop on f3, which is protected by the queen, hits the queen, and then I'm going to get into h3. So he's basically just going to lose that bishop. That would have been fun to see, and I'm surprised that I didn't look a little bit further, because I do want to establish some connection between the queen and the bishop to get into these late squares. And my opponent, even being down material, he just seems like I guess he left his queen here to protect the squares, which was good, and to keep an eye on the rooks. But I think he was also looking at a way to protect his pawn. He was really concerned about his pawn in the opening, and he seems to be at least partially concerned about his pawn here. And again, he gets caught on the next move too, being concerned about a pawn. So anyway, another move pointed out by the computer is knight h5 here for black, which just hits this bishop and threatens to win a pawn. But I wanted to show my move just because it relates to the topic of the video. So even though it's probably the third best move, it shows sort of this interesting way to look at double attacks. So you remember from the opening of the video that a double attack is when two of your pieces attack two of your opponent's pieces. Well, in this case, I had a double attack where one piece attacks a piece and another piece attacks a square. So this is the creative way to look at double attacks, where you're not always attacking pieces, you're attacking squares. So in this case, I played knight d5, which does a couple of things. So first, obviously this knight is attacking this bishop, which by extension is threatening to win a pawn. So I'm sort of attacking this square on f4. But because the knight blocks off the queen from this diagonal, now I'm also threatening indirectly to put some pressure on these light squares. So I'm sort of double attacking this square here. We'll say probably the best way to say this is that I'm double attacking both the f4 square with the knight, and I'm attacking the f3 square with the bishop. And once I get into this f3 square, the queen's going to come over because, remember, this knight is gone now and g2 is gone. So that's sort of a really interesting double attack. At least I thought it was pretty cool. So the piece coordination is also really nice to look at here in this board. Before I talked about, if your opponent doesn't have a bishop, then trying to go after the other squares, and just look at everything here on light squares. These light squares are just getting destroyed. So, okay, well, I guess he kind of started to see what I was up to, but his next move didn't really take action to try to defend his light squares. Instead, he tries to defend his pawn. So he moves this bishop out of the way. I guess he just didn't want me to take with the knight and maybe force his king open and win a pawn. But again, he's got bigger problems here now. So, again, you can try to take a look for a move here for black if you want. So in the game, I just moved my bishop right up to f3, which was the plan to begin with, and now I'm threatening this g2 square if I can get my queen in, which looks like it's imminent. And I'm also protecting my knight here, so it's a nice piece coordination. I've got discoveries potentially on the queen if I need them, which doesn't look like I'll even need. But this is obviously getting really bad here for white. Well, pretty much completely lost, I guess. I can't remember what he did here. Oh, he brought the queen up, which temporarily stops me from putting my queen here because then bishop would be loose. But again, I've got an interesting double attack move here where I can attack with one of my pieces, I can attack one of his pieces, and also I can attack a square. So here, again, I'm not really threatening to go over to h3 because I can't yet. But I played rook c3, which the one attack here with one piece is on the queen, and now I'm attacking this square. So I've got two pieces attacking two, I guess, components of my opponent's board or piece setup. So I've got one attack on a higher level piece, and I've got one attack on a square. Or we might even just be able to say I'm attacking two squares. So here, there's not really much for him to do. The piece coordination is really cool. The knight's got the rook, the rook's got the bishop, the queen's got the bishop, the bishop's got the knight, the queen's got the knight. Everything's just totally coordinated. Really cool geometric setup there. This actually wasn't the most accurate move because it allows the queen to come down here, and then we could get some sort of ridiculous end where everything's getting sacrificed, and I don't know, something like this. I don't even know. Probably something. You'd probably have to do something like this. But anyway, I allowed that. He actually resigned before making this move, but I would have allowed that move. So actually, the more accurate move here would have been to block with the knight, which would have been funny because the knight actually blocked here on d5 first, and then it would be blocking here on c3, and now the queen can't do anything. Just try to sacrifice herself, I guess, basically. So the computer's recommended move here is something silly like rook fb1, with the idea of just after the queen moves here, then just like sacrifices. Stuff like this is like the computer variation. And then there's just, you can make any move for white, and black was just checkmate. So we didn't actually finish the game that way, but there was really no way for white to protect the light squares, and we got to see those two variations where there was the double attack. And in both cases, they weren't actually the best move, but I just thought they were creative ways to show this motif or this pattern of hitting two things at once with two different pieces. So yeah, pretty cool game. Fun win for me since I don't play the French anyway, and I got to basically destroy my opponent, but partially thanks to the early blunder because you didn't have enough pieces to defend. But some cool themes there too. We had forks, we had double attacks, we had removing the defender, which was removing that knight. We had piece coordination. Lots of good stuff here. Weak squares. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you around in the future for another one.